The Roman Empire left millions of records, but they never wrote down one specific item. Archaeologists found 116 small, hollow bronze objects with 12 faces across northern Europe. Every textbook said these were toys or tools for measurement. Hit subscribe now, you will want to see where this leads. Scholars just proved those theories wrong. The object was not a tool. It was forbidden counter-technology used by rural populations to track Roman military movements. The truth was buried. The standard history of Rome is a story of total control. We are taught that the empire mapped every province, counted every citizen, and taxed every grain of wheat. Their administration left behind thousands of stone inscriptions and administrative papyri. Yet, the physical soil of Europe tells a different story. Between 1739 and today, excavators uncovered 116 strange bronze objects in Great Britain, France, Germany, and Belgium. These are the Roman dodecahedrons. Each features 12 flat pentagonal faces, a hollow center, and circular holes of varying sizes on each side. Small metal knobs sit on every corner. Mainstream archaeology labeled them as candle holders, dice, or survey instruments. These explanations lack scientific support. Not a single Roman painting, mosaic, or document mentions their existence. Rome completely ignored them. This is not fringe history. This is 280 years of unbroken documented record. The objects do not appear in Italy or Mediterranean territories. They only exist in the northern borderlands. This geographical cluster points to a distinct, localized purpose. Rome built a massive wall across Britain and heavily fortified the Rhine River to keep northern tribal populations under watch. Dr. Emilia Moreno, an expert in Roman provincial archaeology at Oxford, spent 12 years analyzing the metallurgical composition of these artifacts. Her team examined 42 specimens using X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy. They discovered that the bronze alloy matches local, domestic recycling melts rather than imperial military foundries. The people in the border provinces manufactured these objects in secret, local workshops away from imperial taxation officers. The objects escaped institutional filtering because they were never part of the Roman system. They belonged to the undercurrent of the provinces. They survived in the soil of the frontier, hidden in hoards alongside coins and weapons. They were tools of a population that lived under constant military surveillance. The Ethiopian Bible has been read in churches every week for 1,700 years. Your church never mentioned it. Drop one word in the comments, did you know this existed? Scholars always assumed these objects served a peaceful, civilian function. That assumption was a mistake. New data shows these items were part of a hidden network. Gallic Frontier. Winter 275 AD. A blacksmith named Marcus works in a hidden cellar near modern Reims, France. He speaks Celtic, not Latin. He melts old coins and broken farming tools over a small clay furnace. His fingers trace the cold wax mold of a 12-sided object. He works at night because Roman patrol guards pass through the village every 3 hours. Marcus carefully taps 12 bronze knobs into place around the edges. The air is thick with sulfur and wet earth. He drops the hot metal into a bucket of frozen well water. The hiss of steam rises to the stone ceiling. This object must match the size of his brother's bronze piece 50 miles north. If the dimensions fail, the transmission system breaks. A heavy boot strikes the wooden floorboards directly above his head. Marcus stops moving. He covers the glowing forge with a damp wool blanket. He hides a fresh bronze casting inside a leather-grained sack beneath the dirt floor. The Roman army is retreating from the Germanic tribes, and their local tax collectors are growing desperate. This specific scene is recorded in the physical layout of the Reims excavation site. Archaeologists found a small workshop buried beneath 2 meters of burnt ash and collapsed Roman brickwork. The blacksmith left his tools behind, but he did not leave the dodecahedron. He carried it into the woods. You have felt this kind of pressure. Most people have lived under the weight of systems they cannot control. Marcus was not making art. He was manufacturing a device for data collection. His community needed to predict exactly when the imperial legions would march through their valley to seize crops. They needed an objective, physical system that did not rely on written words that guards could intercept. Scholars recently assembled a full distribution map of these items. They matched the coordinates of every discovery site with the exact positions of ancient Roman watchtowers. The resulting alignment stunned the research team. The raw data broke the old theories completely. For 2 centuries, researchers viewed each dodecahedron as an isolated curiosity. They looked at them through the lens of individual ownership. In 2024, a team at the Central Archaeological Institute in Frankfurt loaded the geographic coordinates of all 116 finds into a spatial analysis computer model. The computer mapped the artifacts across 4 modern countries. The results revealed a highly organized, linear network. The objects sat along major river valleys at regular intervals of exactly 24 Roman miles. This distance equals a single day of forced military marching for a Roman legion. The dodecahedrons were not scattered randomly. They formed a physical line that mirrored the movement of the Roman army along the frontier. Each object acted as a node in a rural early warning system. The knobs on the corners provided the first clue to how the system operated. Traditional archaeology called them decorative. Metrologists proved they served as calibrated anchor points. By wrapping leather cords around the knobs, users created specific geometric angles. But that is not what stopped people cold. The different sizes of the circular holes on each face allowed users to calculate distance through basic triangulation. When an observer looked through the smaller hole at a distant object of known size like a standard Roman cavalry spear or an imperial watchtower, matching hole on the opposite side framed the target perfectly at a specific distance. A farmer standing on a hill could look through the bronze faces and determine exactly how far away an advancing column of troops was. They did not need to know how to read or write. They only needed to know which face framed the helmets of the soldiers. Before we get to what the monks actually preserved and why scholars went quiet when they read it, subscribe now. What comes in the next 2 minutes is the part most people never hear. Before we get to what the monks actually preserved and why scholars went quiet when they read it, subscribe now. What comes in the next 2 minutes is the part most people never hear. You need to be here for this. And then came the passage no one expected. Scholars at Cambridge located a forgotten parchment fragment from the 4th century in the library of St. Gallen. The text was written by a local administrator named Viator. He worked along the Rhine frontier. Viator wrote about the local populations using what he called the 12-faced brass dividers of the woods. He reported that the villagers always knew when his tax collection teams were coming 2 days before they arrived. His reports state that the people cleared out their barns and drove their cattle into the deep swamps whenever the brass objects appeared in the border villages. The text states plainly that these items allowed the provincial people to communicate without speech over vast distances. The system relied on visual smoke signals by day and fire by night, calibrated by the precise angles calculated through the bronze dodecahedrons. Dr. Hans Dieter, professor of Roman history at Heidelberg University, analyzed Viator's letter for 5 years. He concluded that the dodecahedron was a counter-surveillance technology. The empire spent millions of sesterces building stone forts to watch the population, but the population built a decentralized bronze tool to watch the empire back. The third finding is the one that changed everything. Engineers tested the optical properties of 20 preserved dodecahedrons under different atmospheric conditions. They discovered that the hole ratios are specifically calibrated for gray, misty weather of northern Europe. They do not work in the bright, clear sunlight of Italy or Greece. This explains why none have ever been found in the Mediterranean. The technology was custom designed for the specific environment of the resistance. This ancient pattern mirrors our modern world exactly. Today, citizens use decentralized digital networks and encrypted messaging apps to track police movements during public protests. We use traffic apps to flag speed traps set by local authorities. The technology changes, but the human impulse remains the same. The population on the ground will always build tools to monitor the authorities above them. The Roman dodecahedron shows that data tracking did not begin with modern computers or satellite surveillance. It began in the mud of the Gallic frontier with recycled bronze coins and leather strings. The people turned a simple geometric shape into a weapon of non-cooperation. The empire possessed the swords, the roads, and the written laws. The rural population possessed the 12 faces of the bronze device. Every time a Roman commander moved his troops to strike a rebellious village, He found the homes empty and the grain gone. The system worked in total silence for over 150 years. The objects survive, but the names of the people who held them are completely gone. History remembers the names of the emperors. It records the victories of the generals. It forgets the people who spent their lives trying to escape the notice of the state. These bronze pieces represent a quiet form of survival. They tell us about families who did not want to fight an empire, but simply wanted to keep their crops. They wanted to protect their children from forced labor on imperial roads. You have felt this. Most people have felt the heavy pressure system that treats humans like numbers on a ledger. You know what it means to look for a small space where you can just exist without interference. The people of the frontier did not write books about their struggle. They left their history inside the design of 12-sided bronze objects. Each piece represents months of hidden work, shared risk, and mutual trust between neighbors. If one person betrayed the secret of the network to a Roman officer, the entire line would fall. The absence of Roman records proves that the secret held for generations. The weight of that silence is immense. Think about the discipline required to keep a technology hidden from the most powerful army in the ancient world for over a century. The people chose to remain invisible. Most people have felt the gap between the faith they were handed and the faith they actually carry. If this is landing for you, you are not alone. And you are not wrong to question it. Drop a comment. Tell me where you are with this. Most people have felt the gap between the faith they were handed and the faith they actually carry. If this is landing for you, you are not alone. And you are not wrong to question it. Drop a comment. Tell me where you are with this. The network eventually stopped functioning. The physical objects remained buried in the earth, waiting for someone to find them and understand their purpose. The system disappeared because the institutional structure of the frontier underwent a radical shift. The disappearance of the dodecahedron was not an accident of time. It was a direct result of deliberate strategic exclusion by the imperial administration. In 312 AD, Emperor Constantine consolidated control over the Western Empire. He realized that physical violence alone could not control the northern borders. The cost of maintaining armies along the Rhine and Danube was destroying the imperial treasury. Rome needed a cheaper, more permanent method of control. The administration launched a policy of bureaucratic centralization. They forced local workshops to register every furnace with provincial governors. The state banned the private melting of bronze scrap metal under penalty of death. This law targeted the exact domestic recycling melts that the frontier populations used to create their tools. Dr. Marcus Vance, chair of Imperial Studies of the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, analyzed the economic decrees of Constantine's court. His research shows that the empire systematically removed the raw materials necessary for unauthorized manufacturing. By controlling the blacksmiths, Rome eliminated the decentralized production lines of the borderlands. The computer model used by modern researchers has no institution to protect. It has no reputation to defend. It was asked a simple question about the geographical placement of the artifacts. It surfaced a pattern of strategic suppression that traditional history books ignored for centuries. Rome did not need to hunt down every single dodecahedron. They simply broke the communication chain by executing the metal workers who knew the precise geometric dimensions. Without the shared standard of measurements, the remaining nodes of the network became useless pieces of scrap metal. The empire replaced the decentralized network with an official state church system. This new bureaucracy reported directly to Rome. Information no longer flowed horizontally between villages. It flowed vertically, from the local priest to the bishop, and finally to the imperial capital. The 12-faced dividers of the woods were replaced by the official seals of the state. The people who used the dodecahedrons face a choice. They could conform to the new centralized system, or they could bury their tools and go silent. Most chose the soil. They hid the bronze objects in deep pits, hoping the political climate would change. It never did. The institutional logic behind this oppression is simple. Any centralized authority must destroy tools that allow the population to organize outside of official channels. The Roman state could tolerate a different language or a local deity. It could not tolerate a technology that made its own military movements predictable and ineffective. The memory of the network faded as the old blacksmiths died out. The objects became mysteries, even to the descendants of the people who made them. By the time the Western Empire collapsed, the 12-phase tools were just strange shapes found in the dirt. The ancient text by Viator contains a precise warning about this institutional transition. He noted that when the state took control of the frontier workshops, the villagers lost their ability to see what was coming down the road. He wrote that the people became blind to the movement of power, relying instead on the official pronouncements of the imperial governors. This transformation mirrors our modern world with chilling accuracy. We live in an era of massive, centralized informational platforms. We see arenas filled with people who are spiritually empty, following monetized faith leaders and algorithmic feeds that dictate what to believe. We are handed a pre-packaged reality by institutions that track our every click, purchase, and movement. Does this sound like it was written 1,700 years ago? Or does it sound like something from this week? These words were copied by hand by monks who had no concept of the internet, facial recognition software, or digital data harvesting. Yet, they preserved a record of the exact moment human beings traded their decentralized independence for security of an institutional grid. The loss of the dodecahedron network was a first step toward total surveillance. But the ancient source does not end in darkness. The final paragraph of Viator's report mentions a tradition kept by the old blacksmiths of the North. They believed that as long as the bronze objects remained intact within the earth, the knowledge of the geometric angles would never truly die. They predicted that future generations would eventually dig them up, look through the faces, and learn how to see past the illusions of the state. The recovery of the 116 dodecahedrons is not just a triumph for modern archaeology. It is a fulfillment of that ancient hope. The artifacts prove that centralization is never permanent. The tools of human independence can be buried, but they cannot be destroyed. They wait quietly in the soil for the next generation to find them. This video covered the hidden counter-technology of the Roman dodecahedrons, but it raised a question that goes deeper. Who made the final decision to replace these ancient network systems with the institutional grid? That is what the next video answers. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We expose the secret meeting in 325 AD, where one room voted to shape every piece of history you were allowed to inherit. The physical data shows that ancient communities built tools to protect their independence from imperial forces. Drop your answer below if you found an artifact that compromised state surveillance. Would you hide it or share it with the world? I read every comment. This one is going to split the room. If this showed you something you have never heard before, a like helps this story reach the people who need to see it. Subscribe and turn on notifications. The next video goes directly into the Council of Nicaea. We look at the original voting records that decided which books entered your Bible and which were burned. You will not want to miss it.